Hello, my name is Mark Thompson, and I will be your host on this journey through the changing tide, a look at desegregation in Wicomico County. During the 1966-67 school year, when it began, all elementary schools and secondary schools in Wicomico County will be desegregated on a geographic attendance area plan. Roy H. Mahaffey, the superintendent, told the advisory council that to achieve this, the County Board of Education plans to close the 2 remaining all-Negro elementary schools and 1 all-Negro school at the end of the current school year. During this presentation, we will talk to people who were part of that 1966 plan. We will see people who were alive and worked and studied during the 1966 school year. We will take you on a journey through Wicomico County and show you some of the places where schools were built, where Negro schools were torn down. This is The Changing Tide, a look at desegregation in Wicomico County.
Can you tell me about your experience of when you went to Salisbury High and then when you got desegregated? How was the quality of education compared to when you got mixed in with the rest of the other students of different colors?
I think that the education factor has to be balanced with the personal factor because of the dedication of the teachers that we had at Salisbury High School, the persistence in wanting the best out of us, not letting us settle for less, that they always expected quality. So if a person gives you that high expectation, then you try to achieve that. So our teachers expected quality and they would not settle for less. The friendships that we had, even with our parents, going to school with some of our educators and our grandparents, the importance of that, and it just became one generation after another of that legacy that we shared.
I started Salisbury High. It was actually grades 7 through 12. So we left elementary school at grade 6, and all of the Afro-American students in Wicomico County went to Salisbury High School from grades 7 on. We had about, I guess it was about 7 or 8 different sections called A, B, C, D, and so on. I happened to be fortunate enough to be in section 7A, and there were a number of us who followed that level right through, and we had a great time. One of the things I remember most is that the teachers were more like extended parents. Not only did they educate us in the learning of materials and how to be able to respond to things in the community, but also how to be good citizens in the community. They kind of prepared us for life. During that time, one of the things that was most important to them is that you respect your elders. So everybody was either Mr. or Mrs., and you said yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. And even the neighbors that we had, everybody was your parent. And one of the things that I remember most is that some of the teachers would even say, now, you know you don't want us to call home or contact your parents, because most of them knew our parents. Yeah. And so we would say to them, do whatever you want to us when we're at school, but don't call home, because they knew that we would get a double dose of whatever we did wrong, would get the same punishment at home. But our teachers are really, really super. One of the things I think that really impressed me most, and I didn't realize it then until I actually started college, that they had prepared us so well to go on to higher education. When I got to college, writing a term paper was nothing new. The first year of all of my 101 classes, I was able to handle them and fortunate enough to be on the honor roll, because they had prepared us in such a way that, learning the material and being able to use it and to our benefit was real outstanding.
I transferred from Worcester County, big place for me to stay in Salisbury. I went to Salisbury High beginning at grade 9. Had a lot of responsibility because I lived in the community, and when I got there I learned a lot because Ms. Chipman gave me lots of responsibility. It was a good experience. I went home every weekend, but we had long days We left home sometimes in the morning. We didn't get back until maybe 7 o'clock at night when we traveled. But I appreciated the music. We had a music teacher who was very good, and the English, and that is my specialty now. But that's where I got my background from Salisbury High. It was a very pleasant experience.
Thank you both for your time.
Okay, so I said, I need to discuss this with my wife. And so we discussed it. And at that particular time, there was a transition in my life because I was working on the paint crew. We were building the house. We were expecting our first child. And then I was been exposed to being the principal of an elementary school. So that was a decision that we had to be made. So the next day, I did let them know that I would be willing to try it. And so as a result of that, I became the very first principal. I was the acting principal. I was also teaching 6th grade because I was not totally qualified at that particular time. So I had to go back and get classes to become certified and qualified to become the school principal. The school was an elementary school. It was 1st grade through 6th grade. Primarily, all African American students attended West Salisbury School initially. But in the course of time, other students, a few non-white, non-African American students were enrolled. Not many, but the school population was primarily African American, and it drew students from the area that's called Reservation, Jersey Road, West Road Extended. And so we had a conglomeration of lots of students and lots of families who were very supportive of what the school was trying to do, what we were trying to do in the school. Basically, very, very supportive. And so I felt very comfortable. And I think the family members felt very comfortable having me as their first principal of that particular school. So as time passed, schools began as a reorganization of the schools in this county, and they started reorganizing the school from the top down. High school, and then eventually down to the elementary school. And so as a result of that, many times school districts had students that were enrolled in a particular school had to journey to another school. Our daughters were involved in that situation. And so our older daughter, we have 2 daughters, our older daughter was involved. And so in Christmas time, after we came back from the Christmas break, she had to enroll in another school, totally out of our district. And so that continued for a few years. And as a result, the school became Title I school, or Chapter I school initially. And so we had additional personnel working in the school as a result of that. And then as a result of that, the school became more of a conglomerate of students. Started out with K through 3. Then it became pre-K through 2. And now it's pre-K through 2. But I was there, and what happened as a result now, eventually I decided my expertise could be extended beyond elementary school. So I asked for a transfer, and I was transferred to another school in the county, which was East Salisbury School. From there I stayed 9 years, was transferred. Oh, let's back up. I became the principal of the 2 schools, West Salisbury and Salisbury Elementary. But I had a vice principal at each of the 2 schools. Okay, so as a result of that, I became the principal of East Salisbury. I stayed there 8 years. I went to Prince Street School, stayed there like 9 years, and then I retired. And I've been a mentor in the school system for several years, maybe 12 years. But I was fortunate enough to have 2 daughters who've gone to college, who've gone beyond they have advanced degrees, and now I'm able to retire and enjoy my grandchildren, who I have 4 of them. So it's been a blessing. I've been retired for X number of years now, close to 20 years, and God has been good. And this has been my forte, really, my part of my experiences. But a number of the students that I see, the number of the grown individuals that I see now, come to me and say, Mr. Garza, you were an inspiration. You were a great inspiration to me. During my formative years as a young man, started my family, you've been a model, role model for me. And that makes me feel so great, because I've been, hope I've done some things along the way that have been of benefit to individuals that have been successful. Out of the West Salisbury School, we've had politicians, we've had lawyers, we've had doctors, we've had a host of individuals who have been successful as a result of formative years of training at the elementary school. We had a great staff. We had individuals who were supportive. Parents were supportive. Parents were there behind the school in every way that it could possibly be. So it's been a great challenge. It was a challenge for me, but I was able to manage the challenge, and I thank God for the opportunity to have served in that capacity.
There was no rumbling, no fussing. We just integrated, and it made it better for the blacks, because now we had access to better facilities, better buildings. We were taken in, and all old buildings were torn down. I don't know whether it was a good thing. A lot of people got mad when they had to tear down their, it's like they had to tear down Ross Street Elementary School, where I taught. I taught there for 9 years, and the buildings were torn down, and the students were sent to a brand new middle school. Hardly. Everything was better. Our only concern was that they didn't mess it up with the hate, but it wasn't there. It wasn't in any school that I had. There was no hate. I often visit right to there. I visited Snow Hill, where I taught for 9 years, and went to church with students who came home for back home day. The church was actually full of my students, and they invited me down there last month. This was recently. And I'll be visiting Marbella. I visit them quite often. Everything, as far as Salisbury is concerned, there has been no animosity between the races, except in 1968. There was some problem. A young black male was shot in the back of the head, and he was deaf. And this triggered a lot. This triggered a response that was a close akin to Baltimore, the Freddie Gray situation. They threw make-believe bombs, we call them cocktail bombs. They was throwing them in the street, and I was out there in the middle of it. I did spend 13 years as a part-time deputy sheriff. It was just something I did on a volunteer basis. It all started as a volunteer for the Civil Defense Police Force. And it was a very serious, but nobody got hurt. Property was damaged. And that was the only time I saw any kind of uprising that put a bad mark on everybody in the city. And I guess I learned one thing. When you have a crisis like that, don't get mad and start throwing things at everybody, because that's what was going on. I don't know. The affair only lasted one day. And we haven't had anything like that since.
We were told during the summer that school was going to close, Salisbury High School, where Salisbury Middle School is now. And this was a school where all the black community came through the county. People lived in Mardella, went to Salisbury High. People lived in Sharptown, went to Salisbury High. People went to Delmar, went to Salisbury High. I'm talking about the black community. So we were like a family, and then we were told that our families were going to be separated. I put it in that context because that's what it was to us. And our parents felt that they couldn't fight the situation. And one of the reasons that this, and it seems like all the black schools around the country, or even on the lower eastern shore of Maryland, Delmar Peninsula, the high schools were the sacrificial lamb. Most of them were closed down for whatever reason. And the white children would be bused to, coming from Delmar, would be bused to Y High. They would pass Salisbury High. Now the first class, first year they integrated was 65, 66, and they had 5 black students that were academically, smart kids that did like a trial to see how it happened. However, there was no diversity training. You hear about diversity training in this era, but it was not any diversity training for the teachers or the students. So we were just thrown in to the situation, and this was during the time of civil rights movement. In '64, it's the Voting Rights Act, then the assassination of Martin Luther King. So you saw the problems that we were having. When I attended school, I went from the 1st grade to the 10th grade with almost perfect attendance. For the last 2 years of my education, I missed like 40 days all total of school because of experience. We just didn't like it. We had to fight for certain things. When we came, the first year we came, the prom thing was Southern Plantation. We had to do a sit-in to get them to change that. And then when Martin Luther King passed away, they showed no respect. He was our leader in the black community around the nation, and it seemed like it wasn't a big deal to students, so we had a sit-in for that. We had to after the fights and everything. But also, that was some of the negative things. But what you had to do, you had to make it work for you. So you became involved, like a lot of the boys became involved in the sports. I became involved with the singing, the choir, and the library club. But still, the experience of, we didn't over them taking to school. It was like a traumatizing thing. It's almost like if your school burned down, or you lose your home, or your parents come to you and say, well, we're gonna relocate to California. So all your friends, you're taken away from all your friends. And so that was very traumatizing for us. And I think majority of us, especially the class of 67 and the class of 68, we had that feeling of loss because we all wanted to go to the state-of-the-art school. Now they were saying that we wanted books. The reason why integration came about was because we wanted more books. But Salisbury High put out judges, doctors, lawyers, architects, professional people. You didn't see so many kids being thrown out of school. Kids were not medicated. Our teachers dressed professionally. You knew that who the teacher was versus the student. And similar to when I went to Y High, I graduated from Y Senior High. And I had nice teachers. I had Miss Meta Smith was one was really the choir director. And I had two, I can't remember their names, two, I was in the commercial where you do the typing and shorthand. And I had two nice teachers there. So the teachers weren't disrespectful. It was mostly the students, the problems with the students. And then the lack of understanding of our culture with the principals. The principal at that time. And he had a lack of understanding. He wasn't, I think, used to kids protesting. Desegregation was good in one sense, but bad in another. And I would say 70% bad because the people were not prepared on both sides, the white or the black community, especially the educators were not prepared. The black community lost the connection that we had with our school. And just like where we're located now, across from Chipman Center, it came up through the black churches were here, across the street, black businessmen, and the highway came through, the black neighborhood. It seems like everything progressively, things are done, it almost wipes out a community. Blacks lived over, my great-grandfather lived over in this field where the playground is. So these communities, when things are modern things are coming, progress they call it, seems like a neighborhood has to be sacrificed. It seems like it's always the black community that's sacrificing.
Being in Salisbury High School was kind of like a family affair because I got to know Mr. Chipman, the principal, very well. So it kind of changed my experiences when I met the principal. I was in my senior year in 1958. I was in a bad train wreck down here to Fruitland, Maryland, and my brother and I, we both survived. And he was thrown out of the car, but I was in the car when the train stopped pushing the car down the road. And so I'm thankful for that salvational experience. Kind of brought me to my senses too a lot of time. But when I was in the hospital recuperating, Peninsula Regional Medical Center, which was Peninsula Regional Hospital at the time, Mr. and Mrs. Chipman, when I woke up after they put me through all the anesthesia, checking my, x-rays and everything, I woke up in the children's ward because all the rooms were filled up. And I looked there on the side of my bed, there was Mr. and Mrs. Chipman, the principal, and his wife. They were sitting there by my bed. I mean, I'm one of the students from Salisbury High. So that's the kind of spirit or attitude that Mr. Chipman and Mrs. Chipman, because they had no children, gave to all of us, all the classes. We were like family. And so I'll never forget that. And when I woke up and I saw the principal. And so after that, like I said, my senior year, but I had a different outlook on the principal. And I think it kind of changed my perception of my future life, because I was probably getting ready to go in a negative direction. And so I did have a chance also to be able to go down to, I was at Maryland State College. Matter of fact, we were down there at the same time as freshmen. And but I got married, I think, in '59, the next year, and I didn't go back down there. And my wife was over at Bowie. And so my wife and I, she was a graduate of Salisbury High too, class of '57. But Salisbury High has certainly been a blessing for me. And I just loved the school and the people. and especially the classmates that I met that year when we all met at Salisbury High School. And so we're very close even today. So thank God for Salisbury High School. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you
All right.
for watching this presentation of The Changing Tide, Desegregation in 1966. We would like to thank the National Humanities Alliance for funding a grant to support this program. Also, we'd like to thank the Salisbury University Center for allowing us to film in their beautiful library where this Rosenwell presentation was filmed. Also, we'd like to thank the Charles H. Chipman Cultural Center and so many people who have participated and helped make this presentation possible. Desegregation in 1966. What a time when Black children and white children came together. This is what it's all about, uniting our community, coming together, being one community, Wicomico County. Thank you for watching. This has been Mark Thompson.